So our next session deals with the critical subject of skills gaps. Organizations and businesses are increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks, as we've heard. But both Italy and Canada are faced with labor shortages for different reasons. So the questions that we're going to address today include how can organizations acquire the right talent with the necessary skill set and expertise? Can we get more women and young people to enter this field? And how will leadership in this field evolve? These and other questions will be addressed by a panel of experts from business, government, and academia. And it will be moderated by Monsieur Michel Langelier, CEO of AIoT Canada, the Canadian technology cluster dedicated to the Internet of Things technologies. Monsieur Langelier, je vous invite à prendre la scène.
Buongiorno. Bonjour. Welcome everyone to this session. As you will see, the Forum AI on cybersecurity need to address the importance of how we look the entire skill gap, shortage, and upgrade. And if I can take an analogy, if you want to know where to go, look at your GPS. G for les gens, gente, P for processes, and S for system. And if you have your eyes on those three dimensions and they're really well interrelated, thought out, then you're going to get a great strategy. So today, with this session, it's really about the human factor of the people. And as some experts said yesterday, it is a weak link as part of the cybersecurity. When you look at the context right now, we're talking about quadrupling the number of connected objects within the next 8 years. So this will definitely create some huge difficulty for the industry, not only in terms of cybersecurity, but it's a trust issue. If the people feel that they're adopting new technology and they're being cyber hacked, guess what's going to happen? The entire technology sector is going to have a pushback. So also we have to look in other contexts, the labor shortage. And the third one, Italy share the same reality. We're getting an older population. So we have to take those factors and see what we can do best with it. Our session will cover some of the best practices that we can put forward to ensure that the organization, and organization here is government, municipality, industry, les ordres, and so on, to acquire the necessary expertise. Because at the end of the day, we're all interconnected. We will exchange on issue and solution organization must contemplate to make them more cyber resilient. We will also address the future role of cybersecurity leaders. And this is an understatement right now, because if you think that we know what are the skills required, well, with all the next decade, we have to think really about where we should build in terms of skills. Learning, training will be part of the discussion. And also there's going to be some deep discussion about how we should teach, what kind of curricula we should teach, and also how we create that collaboration with the industry. Also, there's a context that, and for me is very shocking, that several reports indicate that dedicated cybersecurity teams currently lack the certification and to play their role. So 70% of developer, for instance, has no security certification, and they didn't get it in their previous role and present role. So if I would be sitting out there, I would be really puzzled about what we're going to be doing about that. The implementation of skills development will become more important and will evolve according to the norms and the standard, and we're going to have a couple experts to talk about that. and how this is going to also transcend with the various legislature. As a nation, how we should deal with this and what should be the common path of action. So the last segment of this plenary discussion will be to see what are some of the actionable items we can actually collaborate with Italy. We have asked the panelists, regardless of if they come from the academic or industry sector, to formulate actionable recommendation. Those recommendations will be carried forward at the conclusion of this forum by Professor Sobrero. Thank you very much. So before we begin, I will just provide you with the synopsis of the session. We will have two parts. Part A will be essentially three presentations, 12 minutes from keynote speaker, and they are all high profile. They could entertain you for 2 hours each, but I've asked them to really give you a summary. I will ask you to hold your question at the end because we will, after the end of the session, if times permit, really give you a chance to ask other questions. Part two will be a panel. You will have five people sitting there and three people virtual. And what I've tried to do is actually trying to make this session as live as possible by actually bringing the academia point of view, the association point of view, and also the industry point of view. There's a reality gap there. Some of the industries say our labor force is not prepared. Academia is working very hard to be preparing this. So there's going to be plenty of discussion, and I've worked the panelists in such a way that we will play those contradictions. And the purpose for that is not a TV show. It's to let the people diverge, but at the end, it's going to be my job to make this a converging recommendation. I must commend the Chamber for their hard work in bringing top-notch panelists in this session. As you will witness, we have been blessed to bring outstanding experts. Senza ulterior indugi, sans plus tarder, without any further delay, let me present the three keynote presentations. Maurizio Sobrero is a full professor of innovation management at the University of Bologna, known as BBS. He has a PhD in technology management and innovation at MIT. He is a senior advisor for Next Production Revolution at Bologna Business School, where he coordinates the school interdisciplinary program and event. The word interdisciplinary is going to be a keyword in this session. BBS is an international business school, and their vision is to shape a new generation of business leaders capable of driving international growth and digital transformation with a view to sustainability. Its academic, interdisciplinary, and strongly practice-oriented approach offer unique learning experience and collaboration with Italian industry champion. Today, Professor Sobrero presentation will provide you with a very systemic view of the fundamental required in learning, upskilling, and related to labor force. This presentation will be instrumental in addressing the issue related to this session in a very broad context. Then this presentation will be followed by Mourad Debbabi. He is a professor at Concordia Institute for the Information System Engineer. He's also the Dean of the Engineering School and Computer Science at Concordia University. He is a founding member and executive director of the National Security Consortium, what we call the NCC, that leads the Cybersecurity Innovation Network program. He serves on numerous expert committee on cybercrime and cybersecurity. What you should know is that the NCC was awarded by the federal government a 4-year budget totaling 160 million. NCC has been funded in 2020 and is connecting 5 Canadian universities, and Professor Debbabi will certainly explain you all the detail because I've asked him to actually talk a little bit more how this network will address the whole labor shortage, and he's going to give some Canadian data about that. The third presenter is Jonathan Paquette, who is also Dean at Université du Québec in Outaouais, which is close to Ottawa. And his area of expertise is about the development of academic research, the development of cultural industry, and the management of cultural organizations. So Mr. Paquette has a totally different background, and when we're talking about the human factor, we will see how this will translate. He has led numerous projects funded by the Federal Research Council as principal investigator. Dean Paquette is interested in digital humanity, the world of publishing, an issue of integrity and authenticity, issues that have become salient due to cybersecurity challenges. As part of its current mandate, he participates in the strategic development of research and in cybersecurity. In May 2022, the Université du Québec en Outaouais, UQO, signed a 5-year tripartite agreement with the University of Genoa and Leonardo, the Italian aeronautic defense and security giant. Dean Paquette will, in his presentation, sketch an overview of one of a capstone collaborative project that is leading. This project calls for rethinking the foundation of curricula, the way we also learn and think, involving multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches. Will this lead to some paradigm shift? I think so, but we'll hear from Dean Paquette. So, could we get Professor Sobrero at the podium? Thank you very much.
So excellent. Bonjour, buongiorno, good morning to everyone here and to those at home, if there's someone connected at home or at the office or somewhere else in the digital world. As a first thing, I want to really thank the Chamber of Commerce for the hospitality. I was here in the first forum in 2019. I participated in all the others at a distance, so it's a great pleasure to be able to be here again in Montreal in person and see old faces and new faces and see things growing. So my role today is really that of trying to take things at a very, very high perspective, not necessarily because it's high is good, just because it's very not too much detailed, and come from business school, it's okay, we're never detailed enough. So the point that I want to make is that what we are discussing today about the specific field of cybersecurity is indeed an endemic problem in many other technological areas around. So if we do not place it in this kind of a context, it will be hard to try to find solutions that are hard anyway and difficult to place in a short term. By training, I'm an economist, and so I tend to think in problems pseudo-rationally, although we know that we're not so rational. And so the first thing that I want to reflect with you is why are we having some sort of a skill shortage? Michel already anticipated some of the issues. In the previous talks, different presenters and panelists alluded to some of the factors. First, the why, and the why is a combination of things, okay? First, there's a lack of inputs. Inputs mean people, okay? And why there is a lack of inputs? On the left side of the chart, you see the demographical imbalance. These are data from UN database where you have countries divided according to the level of income using the World Bank statistics. And the big line that you see up, which is the one with the highest range of demographic change, is that belonging to countries which have the lowest level of income, while high level of income countries are the one on the bottom of the scale. So there is a lack of people, to begin with, not even wondering if they are trained or not. You need people to train them to start. Then you have, in a way, a challenge of, whether it's important or not to get educated, or you can have success in faster ways. Before coming here, I was in India, so I took the liberty of taking an India picture just to think that we are working on this in a global context, that these are famous entrepreneurs in India that are role models with no education or dropouts, okay? So the dropout culture, especially for startups and the like, is an element that is attracting a lot of attention and is still very present in some forms. The third thing is, of course, that it takes time and also money to get an education. This, of course, are US data because they're the easiest to get and to compare in terms of college education, but the problem can be seen also in, again, UN data worldwide. The second issue is that there's a lack of production capacity, probably. Well, we do not have enough to produce. Lack of input, lack of production capacity. What do I mean with lack of production capacity? First of all, to train people, you need trainers, right? And so does it pay to be a teacher? Not just a professor at the last level. And so on the left side of your screen, you see the trainers' availability and remuneration on the countries where you can get the data. And if you compare the level of salary of being a teacher with alternative professions and opportunities of growth, you do see that worldwide, this is not necessarily something that goes hand in hand with, is it good or not to be a teacher? It's a vocational thing, right? It's not economically particularly attractive in many ways. I'm not using data about university professors because to me, the thing comes from the bottom. Before you get someone to be ready for college, you need to have, progressed at lower levels. The other point is institutional availability. We are here, Italy and Canada, so I didn't want to mess up with any country in diplomatic relations, so I use, again, some other countries' data. But the point is that why US? Well, because in the US you have the highest production of doctoral candidates in the world, if we don't look at China now, but that's enough. But so you see that the number of educational and granting institutions with PhD decreased over time, and in the last 3 years. So not necessarily, something that happened when there was no demand. Now there's a lot of demand for a very high-skilled individual, and the numbers of people coming out of these institutions is flattening out. And then training takes time. So the production capacity is always a lag in demand. For those of you who are much more expert than me in supply chain issues, of course, by the time you need somebody and the time you have somebody ready, there's a lag that cannot be covered so quickly. So the other thing is also that growth rates are lagging. So educational systems are stickier. We had a wonderful conversation with Mourad yesterday and her colleague from the business school, and we all, eager to start and do something together. But we have to go through a memorandum of understanding. Then the Senate needs to approve, then move on, and then it starts, and then the promotion and everything. And by the time we got there, probably we are at the 10th edition, and the first graduates come out. So there's some times in between, and it's not just bureaucracy. It's just because you need to do things in the proper way. New jobs need to become appealing because they're competing. Our graduates have multiple alternatives if they are particularly skills. And so it's not so clear that I really want to work in cybersecurity, again, on the right side, because maybe what I learned in these days that it pays a lot to work on the wrong side of the equation so far. And then, there's this issue about practice and theory. Is friends or foe? I mean, do the things that are taught, are the things that we teach too theoretical, not too practical? Do we have anything at hand? if you go back in time, this is the issue about coding. What should we teach? Should we teach people about digital transformation? Should we teach people how to code or not? Big debate about it. So if this is the scenario, what can we do? And so my quick chance to leave something for the discussion is to focus on two things, the targets and the contents. Okay, so targets, one classical way of distinguishing the targets is by level. Okay, by level of age, progress along the knowledge chain, so to say, with a continuing education, which is a strange beast, because we dump into this category both when we have someone who needs to be retrained to be placed again in the job, in the workforce, and somebody else who's simply just changing jobs and needs to be updated and the like. But I would argue that we can use also another way of seeing things. That is, what is the level of engagement of the people that we need to reskill? What are they going to do, basically? Yesterday, we all heard about think and click as the new algorithm to be used. I might think hard, but if I am just a user, my approach to clicking then is very different from that of being an integrator or a developer. So in this game, my skills are those that are needed because I take cybersecurity as a technology that I plug into whatever I'm doing, even in my own house. If I now have an electric charger for my car, and then I have a battery that is charged from the solar, and I want to control from outside of my house, and I then put it in my network, and then I connect. Is my network secure or not? What should I do? I'm just a dumb user, but something more than just think and click is going on around us for many different profiles. And then there are the integrators, those who actually place the technology within a product that is their own, but then their focus, their business, their value is the product, not the technology that is being integrated. It's just a piece of it. And then you have those who develop, okay? And those are the ones who need to know to the very bottom heart the problem. So what types of skilling and reskilling then, again, if this is the targets, and I'm moving to conclusion, I divided into major types, what I call de novo and de alio. De novo is something that we start from scratch. So typically you might associate it with a classical vertical teaching program in which you start with people from the beginning and you move on. But you could also put them in terms of what is the goal of the de novo. Are you increasing awareness? A word that we heard a lot from the different speakers. But awareness about what? About usage, about development, about integration. There are different elements. And then there's the term of informed use, because I'm actually dealing with my bank account and I need to move money around. If I use a fintech company, is that okay or not? What kind of regulation am I breaking or not in moving my money around? Then there's co-development, and then the final stage, which is the more complex, the one that was also described by many of the panelists in the first session, which is how to customize specifically a solution for my client. And then there's the alio. So all of a sudden, something comes up, and I'm not prepared. So far, I've been producing equipment that go into machines that automate the production for making bottles. My understanding of this is really low. And so in so doing, I am really facing a different challenge in terms of reskilling. One is if you start from someone who has no skills. So you're a green field. It's easy to build a skill in that case. But if you go teach adults or someone who already has some kind of understanding and skilling of other type, it's very, very hard. So the de alio are those who are harder, but at the same time, for what we heard so far, are the one that we're missing the most. Because a lot of the people here are very expert, but a lot of people who are not here, which actually probably represent the majority and probably the target for those who are here, are in this situation. And so again, in all these different alternatives, thinking of the de alio for our clients, for our members of the supply chain that we are in, should place us in a different education mode. So just to give a tiny little example that is nothing more than that, of what we try to do at Bologna Business School for this specific issue, for one specific course, was that, we had a focus on essentially the targets. In this case, for us, was mainly that of people already with a degree who had managerial responsibility, and their role was that essentially of being users of those technologies more than developers. They needed to have something d'alio, and so they needed to be exposed because they were decision makers. And so the program is essentially a set of dedicated cybersecurity seminars for CEOs or top-level decision-maker positions that work in this direction. So I think I'll conclude here because I stayed in my time. I hope I give you something to think about it and be happy to then pick up all the different points that will come up for the final discussion. Thank you.
Yes, I'm careful. Last year I was on a walker, so I've got the 2 hips replaced.
Can I have a slide? Bonjour, messieurs, dames. C'est un plaisir d'être ici. Je tiens à remercier les officiels de la Chambre italienne de commerce qui m'ont fait le privilège d'être ici et de pouvoir vous adresser et de vous parler du manque de talent dans le domaine de la cybersécurité. So I'll switch to English. The primary intent of my presentation, short presentation, is threefold. So first, I'd like to talk about the shortage in the area of cybersecurity. Just give some numbers. It's quick statistics. I think everybody knows this information. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, because I'd like to contrast this with an experience that lasted 17 years at Concordia University, where we have been doing extensive cybersecurity training, and like to make a point, to show that the cybersecurity talent is a much larger program. And we need to have the humility to believe that it's not the problem of one institution. We need to be so many into that, and we need to join forces among institutions, academic institutions, but also working in a tight collaboration with public and private sector organizations. The second point, I'd like to give some more details about what we have done at Concordia, give some numbers, give some facts, quantify our productivity in terms of training highly qualified personnel and training cybersecurity experts over the past 17 years. Third, I'd like to say a few words on the National Cybersecurity Consortium, which is a major initiative in Canada. And one of the 3 objectives of this initiative is talent, the training of cybersecurity expert, in addition to R&D and innovation. Next slide, please. So very quickly, I took this from ISC Square, just some statistics that tell us that the population of cybersecurity workers is in the vicinity of 4.6 million. And if we look at the growth, it's ranging from double digit up to single digit in some places. So there is a significant growth. And if we look at the diversity, this is just to make a point that we have a diversity issues. We see that in terms of, for example, women in cybersecurity, it's between, I would say, 14 and 30%. So the aggregate is 24%, and which is really of women in cybersecurity, which is aligned with what we see in academic institutions. If I take the example of the Gina, Cody School of Engineering and Computer Science, we are at 24% in undergrad, and we are at 30% when it comes to graduate studies of women. So this is really in line with what we see here. Now, when we look at the talent shortage, and I'll explain why I'm bringing this figure, the shortage is estimated at 3.4 million globally. And if we look in particular at Canada, it's 25,000. These are positions that are not filled. as of today in cybersecurity in Canada. That's significant. And in a few minutes, I'll be contrasting that number with our productivity in the past 17 years. So at Concordia University, we started back in 2003. We established cybersecurity research and teaching capacity. So as of today, the teaching and research is assumed by what we call the Security Research Center, which is a university research unit made of 70 researchers full-time, 20 faculty members, and about 30 doctoral students and 20 MAC students. So the center is active on all sorts of topics in cybersecurity, ranging from cybersecurity, privacy protection, critical infrastructure security, and many topics. And we have a certain number of research program, at least 5 research chairs within the center. The reason why I'm bringing this is not to talk about research, because in these research programs, each of which is 5-year research program, we are training a large number of security experts in different topics, and some of the topics are really emerging topics. I give the example of industrial control system security, in particular, the area of smart grid security in collaboration with a major utility here in Quebec, which is Hydro-Quebec. So we have been working with them since 2013 with the intention to train experts in the area of smart grid security. So looking at the different domains of the smart grid, namely the substation, digital substation, the distribution system, the transmission systems, the sensor network like wide area measurement system, and so on. Similarly, we are training people in the area of cloud computing, virtualization, SDN, NFV, 5G, and so on. And this is in a tight collaboration with Ericsson. We have also another research program with Raymond Chabot, Grant Thornton, and Catalexy on blockchain technologies and their use, in particular, in the context of one of the sectors of critical infrastructure, that is financial institutions. So looking at auditing of in financial institutions in the presence, for example, of crypto assets and so on. And the last one is more about cloud and edge computing and the cybersecurity issues there. So in terms of training, we train people, as I mentioned, through research, through doctoral program, and through a master thesis program. But as well, we have a course-based master program. And as well, we have cyber resilience training through the lifelong learning at Concordia University. So since 2005, when we did start the program, this is the number of people that we trained. We trained 1,347 cybersecurity experts in 17 years. And we have an outstanding enrollment and huge demand. If you do remember when I presented the gap, this year the gap is 26,000 in Canada. What does it mean? It means that we have at least to multiply by 10 or 20 the teaching capacity in Canada to be able to fill that gap. And it's not that we have lazy. As you can see the numbers, extremely productive group, right? You see thousands of course-based master students. You see 162 master theses. You see the publication that are authored by students. And these are top-notch experts that are nowadays everywhere in the Canadian economy. You will find them in financial institutions, in utilities, in the telecommunications sector, in government agencies. They are everywhere. Some of them are technical leads, some of them are managers, some of them are executives. Maybe just a few words. I think my colleague previously mentioned that it takes a lot of time to create these programs. We started working on this program in 2003. It took us 2 years to go through the approval process, both internally and externally with the government of Quebec. So it took a lot of time. So I mentioned we need to multiply by 10 or 20 the teaching capacity. means creating other programs, having additional support, providing additional resources to increase the teaching capacity and so on. And think that each program that we will bring to the table will take another 2 years to get approved. So, which means we need to change the way we are doing things as well. My colleague mentioned as well that we had a problem of input. With respect to engineering and computer science, and I can speak not just for Concordia, but I can speak for the engineering and computer science schools in Quebec, because I know the numbers. I sit in the Council of Engineering Deans. I know very well the numbers. If you look at our growth in the past 5-6 years in terms of student population, it's at least 50%. But if you look at our level of funding, it didn't change for the past 30 years or so, to some extent, which means the teaching capacity didn't follow. We still have the funding based on weighted FTE, but we didn't receive additional resources to take our teaching capacity to the next level. Until, I must make an exception, until 2020, where the government did realize that there is a problem and that they will need 50,000 engineers and computer scientists within the next 5 years. And then they decided to inject $3.7 billion, the government of Quebec, in engineering and computer science education. So, two important measures that the government took, and it was really outstanding measures. One is to give a scholarship up to $20,000 for each engineering or computer science student. Any student that gets into undergrad, provided some conditions like maintaining good standing and so on, will receive up to $20,000 of scholarship. Additionally, the government will support the hiring of 500 full-time faculty members in engineering and computer science schools in Quebec over the next 5 years. So that's huge, but it took some time to arrive, but we are very happy to have that. What we need next, because it's not enough to have students, we have a huge influx of students, we have professors, we need infrastructure, we need space. And I see my vice president here, and I'm sure he will agree with me on that point. So I switch a few words on the National Cybersecurity Consortium. That's a recent initiative. And it did start actually in 2020, where we established a not-for-profit organization with the intent to bring together the stakeholders from academia, from private sector, and also collaborate with public agencies. So the intention is to advance the cybersecurity agenda in Canada in training, R&D, and commercialization. So the NCC is structured in 5 networks, one dealing with software security, one dealing with CI security, one dealing with privacy protection, one dealing with human-centric cybersecurity, and one dealing with network security. And each network is at least 40 full-time faculty members that are involved, in addition to their students, and also collaboration with the private sector. So the Cybersecurity Innovation Network has been advertised in the federal budget in 2019, and the Cybersecurity Innovation Network is an initiative that was awarded to the NCC. The NCC is managing the initiative. It is funded at a level of $160 million. $80 million are coming from the federal government, and $80 million are coming from the private sector and public sector as well. Just to give you an idea of how many organizations are involved, we have at least 29 Canadian universities, 6 colleges, 44 companies, 17 of them are large corporations, and 27 are small and medium enterprise. And we have as well 21 not-for-profit organizations. So I'll stop here to keep the time. So the challenges that I see to address the shortage of talent in cybersecurity. So I mentioned the teaching capacity that need to be taken to the next level. There are still elements that need to be supported, like providing the space. The approval process, I already mentioned that it takes 2 years to get a program approved. The interdisciplinarity, so that's a very important point. So, for example, when it comes to cyber-physical systems, smart grid, transportation systems, energy systems, and so on, to train people that are able to administer the cybersecurity of this system, you need people that have a very thorough understanding of cybersecurity. You need people that understand other aspects, like, for example, the dynamics of power systems, people that are very strong in control theory as well. So just to build a team that has the needed expertise to be able to start training people, you will need at least 2 years to build such a team. And we went through that exercise. Also, to train people, it will take more time because you are not just training them in one area, you are training them in multiple aspects. So EDI, I mentioned it's a challenge, and also the body of knowledge in some cybersecurity areas is not mature. So we know very well how to do network security, malware defense, and many other topics. But for example, when it comes to resilience, to vulnerability research, to 5G security, to cloud computing security, it's a new territory. So the opportunities. There is, in Canada at least, there is major investment from the public sector, both provincial government and federal government, and it's an opportunity for us to be present, to participate, and to leverage these resources to train more experts in this area. The private sector is coming to us. Recently, an executive from a multi-billion business came to me. He said, I'd like to be close to you because I'm interested in expertise and talent. Lastly, I think it's also an opportunity for collaboration, and I did mention that it is more than a problem of one institution. If you'd like to address the gap, we need to be so many and working together. Thank you.
We're giving them a little bit of pressure. They're doing a fantastic job, by the way.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'll join my voice to those of my colleagues who thank the Chamber of Commerce for this kind invitation, and also for all of those of you who travel from this far, from Italy, to join us in presence, and so this is much appreciated. And for us in universities, it's always a great opportunity to be in touch with people from the industry. So I'm Jonathan Paquette. I'm Dean of Research and Creation at Université du Québec en Outaouais, and as Michel has told us, kindly has already give us a little bit of a clue where we are geographically. We're just right across our national capital, which is Ottawa. So as Dean of Research and Creation, I cover in my mandate all sorts of fields and disciplines, from photonics to forestry to project management and whatnot. And cybersecurity is obviously one of them. That's the reason why I'm here today. And not only is it one of them, it's one area in which we want to grow, in which we want to expand. So we had a core, and it was very much an opportunity for us to rethink of our institution and ourselves in terms of the kind of programs we want to give, but also in the types of research that we want to conduct in our institution. So here, what I'm going to talk a little bit to you about is more or less the transformational dynamic of cybersecurity for our research institution. So we give a little bit of a sense as to where we're heading. Our university, so basically just to give you a little bit of a clue, it's a part of the U of Quebec network. So if you're not familiar with our university system, the University of Quebec is a network of 10 universities, some of which are generalists, as we are. University of Quebec in Montreal is one. And there are some specialized universities like the Institut National de Recherche Scientifique, which is in fact one of our partners in cybersecurity. So there's many different universities, including one engineering school, École Technologie Supérieure. So we're part of this broad network. We are a general comprehensive institution with 3 campuses. Our main campus is in Gatineau, which is adjacent to Ottawa. Our second campus is just not very far from here, just a couple of kilometers north in the northern belt of Montreal, so in the suburb, and this is an area in which we also offer service. So we are the university of 2, more or less, administrative regions in Quebec, our region in Outaouais and the one in the Laurentians. And we have a tiny, tiny campus in a small town called Ripon, and this is where we have one of our institutes on forestry, which is a very fantastic research institution that has tremendous application for the industry. So why cybersecurity at UCO? Well, this is maybe what we'll try to answer first. We had, since 2001, a small lab on cybersecurity, so that's something we had. We also have a small component on research on the Internet of Things, microsystems, microelectronics. So we had a core. We had a number of researchers who were very much dedicated and for a long time. In addition, we also have components that are not necessarily seen or associated with cybersecurity, but are increasingly important. We had a long history in cyber psychology, long history in behavioral sciences, in which there's a lot of important and potential applications for cybersecurity, and I'll get to that a little bit later with important labs that we have, and now we're trying to make sure that they are a little bit more in conversation with their friends in cybersecurity. So once again, why cybersecurity in UCO? Well, we are also a member of the Innovation Zone project in Gatineau, so it's a major project that would attract basically a hub for industry, university, and research, so trying to put that together. So Connexité, we have been for a long time member. And it's also what our stakeholders have expressed in terms of areas in which our university should contribute to regional development. Answering what the community needs and being sensitive to what our stakeholders demand is something that's part of our fabric. We're not the type of institution that has a theology program or that has an antiquity program simply because we're both a young institution, but we're also a practice-based, practice-leaning institution. So this gives you a little bit of a sense as to why cybersecurity and why cybersecurity at UCO. I was asked here to give a little bit of to problematize cybersecurity in terms of what does it mean in terms of skill shortages and gaps, and what could we add to this conversation? Well, we've been talking, now it's 2 days, on the importance of the organizational and social challenges of cybersecurity. We have said that a lot of these challenges are highly social, behavioral. A lot of the threats in cybersecurity are those that threat our sovereignty. These are, very much challenges that are fit for political scientists, for sociologists, for economists, for people in business schools, for people from different fields. And so part of the solution is also trying to see how we can make sure that this conversation integrates the whole academia, and having people maybe connecting a little bit more with people who hold so people who can understand a problem in a certain way connect with people who hold a solution, a technical one in another. So all sorts of reputational risks, ransomwares, and whatnot. You probably know, as people who are experts in the field, much more than I would on that element. So the importance today, and what we try to do at UCO, is to try to reframe cybersecurity in terms of an interdisciplinary approach in which we establish a broader dialogue within our institution. I just want to give you an example as to why social sciences are very likely the weakest link in this whole research agenda for cybersecurity and educational agenda in cybersecurity. Out of 55,000 funded projects by the Canadian government from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, which gives roughly $400 million, half $500 million a year. Only 17 projects that I could find in the database related to cybersecurity. Half of them were funding for a master's student, the other half for a research project. So this is minimal, thinking how the importance is for cybersecurity in terms of disciplines like economics, disciplines like business schools. So this is a very, very minimal participation of the social sciences in the equation. And something that might also be striking for those of you who are instructors in the room. If you're teaching in the social sciences, if you're teaching in economics, if you're teaching in a business program, chances are that your basic research method class is based on ideas about solving problems and interviews that were developed decades ago in a very different world. We teach students who do ethnography today, and even students who do criminology. Basic research methods are based on how we conducted interview in the Pacific Islands in the 1950s. So these are the theories from which we base our reflection. I'm not saying that they're irrelevant. I'm just saying we have to think of things very differently. And this is the kind of challenge that we want to get into at UCO. So we need to have an approach that is a little bit more interdisciplinary. And if I'm allowed a little bit more time at the end, I'll give you another takeaway in terms of the kind of strategies that we can put together to make sure that the workforce is fit and coming. So at UCO, we've redeveloped a little bit of some of our programs. So we've made sure that our computer science program had a strong cybersecurity component. We have an entirely new BA in cybersecurity that's coming up. A BA in digital innovations where there will be a very strong component for cybersecurity. Graduate certificates in cybersecurity and PhD in computer science. That has a strong, once again, a very strong component in cybersecurity. So we're already there, so it's part of our general curriculum. And we also have continuing education programs that are delivered by both faculty and also professionals that are fit to answer very specific challenges that organizations face. And these are very important. So we have, for instance, here's a training session on cybersecurity and the legal and economic aspects that the organizations face. So we have practitioners coming in the equation and also faculty. And this is why it's important to keep these conversation going when we develop these degrees. So fantastic new catalyst for cybersecurity. In terms of research, we have a unique joint program between our university and the INRS, in which we have pulled together to attract new professors, so new faculty member in Gatineau in our institutions, in which we hope to train much more MA and PhD students in cybersecurity. And this joint research unit is so a very interesting catalyst for this new interdisciplinary approach to cybersecurity. We're going to have the core technical people aligned with people who are very big stars in psychology, behavioral sciences, and we'll try to take this opportunity to do what universities have to do at times, and it is to try to think of things very differently and try to innovate a bit. So we have a number of other institutions, different labs, very classical cybersecurity labs, cyberpsychology labs, and we also do this is what we do, and probably is something that is a little bit transformational, is that we invite the entire community, entire faculty to join in different sessions and seminars to talk about cybersecurity problem. And so it's an open invitation to every member, graduate students, but also faculty, to sit down and have a talk and try to define research problems that can definitely sustain an important research program. And not only do we invite faculty in these occasions, we also ritually welcome people from the industry. And these are very important places where we can learn from one another and where we can definitely try to understand how one thinks and what the other thinks. Often people think that professors are a little bit in the ivory tower, but what I like to tell them as an answer is that they're not necessarily in the ivory tower. They're generally trying to answer something that's very practical, and that's in pressure imposed from them by their own system and the environment in which they work. So this is what they try to solve first. Then trying to establish the conversation with the industry is something that we need to unpack and make this on a longer perspective, and trying to make sure that these discussions also take into account the complexity of working in academia as well. So we try to innovate in the way we do this. We also have important partnerships with universities in Brazil, with a tripartite partnership with Leonardo, Italian company, and University of Genova, where we have already began to transfer a faculty and fund mobility exchange from faculty, making sure also that we send our brightest students abroad. We support mobility. My office is making sure that this agreement is really enacted, and that's important. In my experience, within the first 2 years of these agreements, it's very important to increase mobility so that real conversations happen between people and that solutions emerge. So a great agreement that we're very proud of, and that will most definitely support talent in the industry, and we'll be very happy to send our students abroad. And maybe just in conclusion, the last takeaway is maybe if we want to increase the workforce and the workforce diversity in cybersecurity, maybe it's to think things differently. And if we want more women, for example, in cybersecurity, maybe it's trying to attract people thinking that they're already in a program, very likely in the social sciences, because this is where women, educated women, are in majority in the university, often 75, 80% in some program, and try to approach people who are already in an educational program and try to think differently in terms of addressing the problem, what they are really interested in, whether it's in psychology, social work, what have you, law, and then moving from that perspective, from that already important baggage of experience and will to solve world problems, all the way to an interest in the technical dimension. And this path is very likely to be productive. Working with someone who's already having a degree towards another degree is very likely, if you're capable of putting together one's interest in changing the world and making a difference, and one's will afterwards to try to solve the technical component and the interest to do so. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Martin, est-ce que ça serait le temps d'avancer? Andrea, give him a chance to take the stage. Cinquième save. Merci, here. Okay, Monsieur Gagnon, just à côté. You're the first one here. A Faude. I'm sorry, I have to breach a little bit the protocol here because I've been told that I have to shorten by 10 minutes and we went a little bit extra. So obviously we won't be, and we'll just move. That's going to be my chair. Perfect. Okay. So thank you very much, Dean Debbabi and Paquette, for your presentation. Vorrei anche ringraziare il professor Sobrero per averci dato questa visione sistemica dell'apprendimento. That was my lesson yesterday, and I had Matteo help me with this. Are you in the room, Matteo? You were very harsh with me, but that's fine. I hope I did a good job. So just so you know, yes, we have our three guests over the screen. And when I name your name, please just wave. I'm not going to go through the various CV. You're capable to see on the screen the various panelists. But we have Francesco Norrenti from Leonardo. We have Pierpaolo Gambini that is joining us virtually. We have from the Cybersecurity National Agency of Italy, Paolo Azzeni. Thank you very much. We have Andrea Saracino, who is from the Artificial Intelligence AI. We have Andrea. Thank you. Sorry, because Andrea for me is a lady and I type. So that's the French mind thing.
I understand.
We have Lara Prociati from Art ER. And we have three Canadian panelists. We have Faude Kahn from 12 Dot. We have Stéphane Gagnon from Université du Québec en Outaouais. And we have Martin Sanson from La Société Conseil Lambda. So without any further ado, I will really flow and I'll ask every one of you to limit yourself between 2 to 3 minutes at the most to respond to the question that I've prepared you for. So let's start with Mr. Gambini. In these days, in the other session, we had the opportunity to understand the importance of new technology, mainly in the digital domain and the skill necessary to exploit them. In Leonardo, the main Italian high-tech company in aerospace, defense, and security sector, how are you moving to be able to bring the new generation closer to those digital technology do you start from high school, and how do you work with the academic world on this?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Welcome, sir.
That's great. Thank you very much, and good evening or good day for you. I have listened very carefully the presentation made from the professors in the previous section. And I fully agree with them about the necessity for industries and institutions of talents. In this moment, we are seeing a various shortage of talents. To give to you figures, in the next future, more than 15% of the people that we need to hire is devoted to the cyber domain. And more than 45-50% will be in engineering domain. So we have identified several new competencies that are critical for us. Data protection, privacy, infrastructure security, identity and access management, and so on. And we need to work close with the universities and the high school in order to define and promote technical skills and technical competencies in order to try to involve as much as possible young talents, young students to STEM domain. That's why, as Leonardo, in the last years, we have tried to set up several different initiatives regarding to close the gap between us as company, technology and competency we need with what the young talents are thinking to do. We set up several programs that is called STEM Labs, in which we have defined, we have realized several contexts on the most advanced technologies like AI, big data, 3D printing, space robotics, advanced materials, cybersecurity, and drones, and so on, in which, thanks to our knowledge and our expertise, we have tried to define a sort of syllabus composed by video lectures, multimedia, live talks, STEM Olympics contest, different type of contexts that we can provide free of charge on several digital libraries to all the students from high school and to their teachers in order to transmit, to decline what we are able to do and which are the opportunities to this young student. This is the first step. So the first step is to try to close the gap and enhance the number of students that want to choose engineering, mathematics, physics as for their future. The second step is once they enter in a university, of course, we have, as been said in advance, we need to define a clear path of competencies. So we work closely with university, try to imagine that at the moment we have a relationship with more than 90 different institutes worldwide, and we have more than 250 different running collaboration with university research centers. But with them, we are defining the syllabus for dedicated teaching programs in order to promote these areas. And we want to work with them mainly with financing some PhD, some doctorate. So just this year, we have been committed with Italian and UK universities. And of course, we have several, our path includes Canada and other countries as well, with more than 90 PhD. So it doesn't mean that the Leonardo Group has decided to finance 90 PhDs on the digital technologies and cyber, AI, HPC domain in order to try to foster this area with young talents. I don't want to I mean,
I
we have
let
several
you
more
run.
things to think.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Gambini, I let you run a minute extra, and in fairness for the other people on the
Okay,
panel,
that's
so I
great.
will move to the next question, but thank you very much. For Mr. Norente, it would be interesting to know a bit better how Leonardo is working with Canadian organization and how this synergy are implemented with the rest of the group. And thank you very much for making the travel.
I don't know. Oh, you can hear me. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Buongiorno a tutti. First of all, I take 2 seconds to say thank you to the Italian Chambers of Commerce, the President, Carmine D'Angerio, Daniel Viron, Ruggero Sacci, and all the staff inside and outside this room. I hope I didn't burn my 3 minutes. I basically follow the steps of Pierpaolo. Pierpaolo, we work very closely, and I think this environment is, there's not only shortage of personnel, there's no shortage of candidates, but there is a second issue, how we retain our workforce. So as soon as we brought in on board in the industry, I'm looking from a business perspective, how do I retain talent from moving to another industry? Why they should stay at Leonardo rather than go to Ferrari or Formula One, etc. So this is one aspect. Maybe we can talk later. There are also aspects in terms of commitments that we have with the federal government. We are a defense and aerospace. Defense are peculiarities in terms of obligation, in terms of ITB, industrial technological benefit. We can talk later. So what we need to do in country to respect the commitment to the procurement. Leonardo in Canada has been working the last 4 years relentlessly to try to transfer some of the knowledge we have in Italy and Europe, because now we are a multi-nation company. We have 150 offices and production sites around the world, 50,000 people, but very few know that almost 9,000 are dedicated to R&D. We invest 12.3% this year of annual revenues in research and development. We are talking about 2.5 billion Canadian. So it's a staggering amount of money we invest in R&D. In Canada, we established a relationship with our colleagues at the University of Quebec and Ottawa. We established a relationship with innovation centers. Gatineau, we're looking now at Sherbrooke, at the university, we're looking at their activities on smart cities as well. We are trying to not only look at universities, but also innovation center and what we call the business innovation factory. So it's basically a startup accelerator. So we try to invest in startups, which are at the pre-startups level, so we can invest and bring them to the market. So in my personal experience, one of the biggest issues we had with startups is they have brilliant ideas, but they don't arrive to the market. So I hope I stay in 3 minutes. I'm happy to explain a little bit more all this concept further in the conversation.
Thank you. Cody, you're an expert and consultant in the cybersecurity. You spent 20 years to help the industry to build secure network system. You are an active committee member of ISO and IEC standardization bodies. How do you feel the industry should better prepare in terms of training and addressing the knowledge gap? Do you feel your clients are well or ill equipped?
I think they're ill-equipped. I think just to start off with, I think the one thing we have to do is stop the poaching. If you work in this industry long enough, you'll know that because of the shortage, what's happening, we're just poaching from each other, right? And it's nasty. So that's one problem we have to start, but it's, I think, a systemic result because of the shortage, right? That aside, to deal with, I mean, it's obviously awesome to see what's going on with the universities, right? And that development, that encouragement, I think we have to start earlier, right? We've got to get kids at a young age thinking about this, right? And I think it's things like puzzles and challenges. If you played with Lego or Meccano or like all these other new things that are out there, blocks, those are the foundational pieces for cybersecurity, right? Because it's problem solving. So taking that and then encouraging that to get these kids into these sectors where we're needing, and that's what we need to do, and we're not doing that. You are starting to see high schools doing it. We hire a lot of high school students now versus university students. And why? Because these kids have said they want to learn about cybersecurity, so we're opening the door for them to actually see if they want to step in. And it's been a great thing. But I think there's still a problem, right? There's still the problem that even though education is one piece, the one thing we keep forgetting about the whole problem is that you need experience, right? And nothing replaces experience. So a teacher can teach you all kinds of elements. You can have VMs running and do all kinds of hacking or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's when you're running in a real environment, whether that's a carrier network or an enterprise network or whatever network or environment you might be, is operationally, it's different. And we don't prepare students for that. And what happens is, and what I've seen happen time and time again is, companies that are, I'm going to say, underfunded, or they think that they can hire someone who just came out of university, put them into a security role, make them a security officer, and all their problems are gone away. That's not how it works in the real world, because as soon as you know what hits the fan, that person is now under certain pressure that they've never had before in a university setting, and that company's livelihood is dependent on them in that instance. And so as a result of that, now they're trying to figure out how someone broke into their network, what were they actually trying to target, and how do I now resolve this in a real-time situation? And potentially, if they're a startup, how do I answer to the shareholders of this company? So I think all of those things is making sure that we provide an opportunity to do things like interns, like internships and things like that. Like I think in co-ops, like depending on where you are, like everyone uses different names. But I think those are the things that we really need to bolster in our industry. And as industry organizations, we need to open our doors to these kids to come in and have that, right? And also the other thing that we're not really talking about too is the number of security experts just leaving the industry just due to burnout. Colleagues that I've known for a long time, I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm seeing so many of my colleagues that I've known and who I highly respect are going to different sectors. They're walking away from cyber just because it's just too much on them. It's a big burden. So thank you.
So, Mr. Adzini, regarding your agency, Canada and Italy, as well as other countries, have and will have significant needs and shortages in labor forces and cybersecurity, as you just heard. What is your agency doing to counter this situation?
Okay, good morning or good afternoon to each of you, depending on the time. Do you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
we hear you.
Okay. As you know, our agency was created only about 1 year ago, so we are now kind of starting this kind of task because the agency was very small in the beginning. I joined the agency 3 months ago with the goal of investing in education, and I also happen to be a university professor on leave of absence from a university. So as you might imagine, I really agree on what the three speakers discussed in the beginning. Let me say that the issue is that we really need a comprehensive approach, in the sense that you have to work in all the directions that were mentioned, which means that you have to cover education at all levels, from school to bachelor, master's, PhD program. You have to cover disciplines, both very technical in cybersecurity, also in computer science with interest in cybersecurity, but probably also in other STEM technologies, as well as in cross-disciplinary topics. So the kind of work our agency is trying to do is to promote education in cybersecurity and in IT and in STEM courses all together, by working with as many partners as possible, which means with the government, Department of Education and Higher Education, with industry, with local administrations, which in Italy have a responsibility over some levels of intermediate education. Just to mention 2 or 3 things in which we are specifically trying to put our effort. One is that we are trying to define a certification program for cybersecurity in the same way as it was done in other countries, because the field is rather young. Most of the people have degrees at best, in computer science or computer engineering. So we need to make clear which are the programs that are really relevant for cybersecurity, both from the technical point of view and from the policy point of view. I mean, you mentioned the cross-disciplinary programs, and they are important as well. The second thing we are working on is promotion of IT in general, cybersecurity in particular, trying to work with schools to with campaigns over schools, trying to promote disciplines. And one specific approach we are following is to promote games, I mean, cyber challenges or similar games, because this would allow people to understand that we are working in that direction. Third point, and I understand this is the last thing I'm allowed to say, is that we are trying to promote computer science in school, even from primary school, because in this way we can enlarge the potential candidates for our programs, because this is what our world really needs. Many other things could be said, but I think it should stop here.
Mrs. Porciati, you are working for a consortium that is within the region of Emilia-Romagna, and this region qualified as an international data valley. You have world supercomputer, really well-equipped big data community, and you have designed a new policy strategy with the purpose of attracting circulation and retention of talent. So my question to you is, what are the key factors to increase the capacity of your territory in attracting those digital talents? How can government public policy contribute to the capacity of business to attract digital talent?
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Yes, in fact, as we listen to the keynote speakers, the cybersecurity skill gaps is both a today issue and a future concern. So this means act at multiple levels, and especially for an organization as the one I represent, that works with a multi-stakeholder environment, is very important to develop comprehensive skills development and talent attraction policy framework, and specifically connected to the regional data valley strategy. This includes support a vibrant artificial intelligence and cybersecurity training and education ecosystem that also promotes entry to cybersecurity jobs for a broader and more diverse range of individuals. As was said before, for example, for young people that graduated in humanities, women and girls. So we need to enlarge our audience of targets. But since the qualitative and quantitative skill gaps cannot be solved with the local workforce only, it's also essential to attract talents. So this is something that Emilia-Romagna is trying to do together with Arthur since 2019. We develop ITER, International Talents Emilia-Romagna, a regional program that attract and retain international students, scientists, and knowledge workers in the field that the ecosystem really needs. So we work with a multi-stakeholder approach. and this is very important. We collaborate with businesses, universities, but also with providers, and the association that are included in our research and innovation ecosystem. We ask ourselves what kind of profiles, what kind of skills we need, and how find the people that match with the profiling need. So we collaborate together, and we develop different services, initiatives to really meet the needs of these talents.
Mr. Gagnon, we were talking about the skill competency, and it's very interesting because at your university you have work a maturity assessment model to assess cybersecurity team skills and their organizational capacity. Could you share the highlights of your group work? Are there any revelation? And I would like you guys to put the slide that we provided you on to that effect. Not this one, the one, yeah.
Thank you very much, Michel. Indeed, not much revelation. Universities are always scratching the surface, and they leave. Once they've seen the surface, they go for another surface to scratch. So therefore, yes, in a business school, I have partnered with a few colleagues in computer science, of course, to work on models that allow us to assess an organization's capabilities for cybersecurity prevention, cybersecurity or force response teams. One topic that was dealt with recently, using an ontology, which is basically another format of representation of data, of course, a graph database systems, where in this case, for example, which we display here, an ontology can be reused to model the set of skills that you find among the different positions in your IT teams, as well as other groups and operations. Where one of our doctoral students, who's actually graduated December last year and joined, I think, the team at Polytechnic, Mr. Marc-André Léger. He actually could not join in today. He was teaching this morning. My apology for him not be here. So his thesis dealt with literally pinpointing how certain position descriptions actually point out specific skills that are required to fulfill certain cybersecurity prevention function and response. And using an ontology of skills, actually the one developed by NIST in the United States, he was able to determine that you can effectively pinpoint whom would be the best person and which group of people would be the best to respond to certain specific attacks. He used, for example, in this case, 50 attack profiles from the MITRE attack database, and he demonstrated at a level of about 85% rate of success that he was able to predict who was the best combination of skills. So the question remains today, to what extent can you peruse those technologies, graph databases, in order to do much more than that? For example, in addition to scanning your capabilities among your people, you can also, in real time ideally, and we have a lesson in consulting, never say the word real time, because some lawyers might ask you, it was not real time. So in quasi-real time or in almost real time, try to direct the right event, of course, to the right team and the right personnel, and hopefully to even supply cybersecurity as a service eventually, because I'm pretty sure companies will come up with certain services you want to reuse, more than antivirus. So therefore, the challenge for a company will be to effectively direct their needs to the right providers. And thirdly, and more importantly, the more challenging aspect, reasoning. Here you have a list of items in green that are the more complex things you could do with knowledge graphs, or what we call graph databases, including the embedding of certain rules that are within the graph. And you can, hopefully, with a certain amount of configuration, automate the execution of those rules, so that effectively you have automated reasoning to a certain extent, which can be coupled, of course, with more advanced deep learning, which allows you to implement that as well with mathematical models. So I stop there, But
It's probably an entire course. and
indeed,
you're-
and I have scratched the surface, so I can now leave. I'm sorry,
sure.
I'm joking.
And I would like to sign up for that course.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you.
Martin, you are with La Société Conseil Lambda. Your consulting firm, Martin, helps several government agency and private sector clients. But when you hire expert within your firm, okay, what skills are you really looking for? And is this on this list? And how this resonate with the industry? What are the gaps your firm are really trying to fulfill? Because you've got a big challenge. You have to get the top expert within
Yes,
your
we
firm.
do. Actually, to fulfill those gaps, we need to make sure that the four key pillars that are the students, the industry, the colleges and universities, and the government make sure that we are allowed to get those people. And each of those groups, they do have homeworks to do as well, not just the industry. The students, they need to know what they want to work with, where they want to go, what type of industry they want to work with. The professors and the colleges, I see that it's already done in many places. They need to get in touch with the industry and talk to them about what their needs are so that they can adjust the curriculum. Also, the industry, you need to work with the colleges and the universities, but you also need to use, what we've done is to use grants from the government to bring in students, master's degrees and PhDs, to work with us on specific part of projects where both the student is interested into working in and we are interested into working with them. And finally, the industry must use, we saw earlier, there is a prompt, there is my tax. Make sure that you get in touch with the people that can bring in money to make sure that you can get the right people to work with you. Because if you stay within your own company and you don't try to look outside, you'll never be able to find the right people. A few years back, if you remember 5-10 years ago, you used to shake a tree and you boop, 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 3-4 analysts would fall out and you'll just pick from them. But nowadays, you shake all the trees and nobody comes out. So you have to go outside and work with the universities, with other companies, and with the government to make sure that you can get people to come in and work with you. It worked for us really well. We have developed a cybersecurity portal, and right now we have a student from the university, Laval University in Quebec City, that is doing our master's degree in AI, and we're applying the AI to our model, our cybersecurity model, to make sure that we will give the best potential controls to the industry that will come in and use our tool. So work with the industry, work with the government, work with the universities.
Thank you, Martin. Andrea, you have an interesting question here. It's about trust. With the exploding number of cyber threats, how is this is impacting on the digital trust out there? Could you explain how Europe are raising the bar in terms of regulation, as in terms of ethical and responsible best practice, and how will this translate to the employee of the future?
Yes, sure. So, kind of two questions here. So, for what concern digital trust, I will say that yes, for sure, the increase of cyber attacks that now are also starting to enter in the cyber physical world. Actually, it's starting to create some concerns. What we are experiencing is that companies are starting to be interested. Government are being interested. We saw this a lot. Also, final users. End users are starting to get interested in the value that cybersecurity has. So, whenever there is a kind of product that is in the digital world and everything is going in that direction, the digitalization is something that we are experiencing in any possible field. So it's not like you can say, no, cybersecurity doesn't relate to my activity or to my customers. Then you want to integrate inside your process something to manage the cybersecurity aspects of this. In Europe, this became extremely clear when we introduced the GDPR for the protection of personal data, that this caused a quite great shift in the paradigm of how to handle security. And that's why now we have this shortage of talents in cybersecurity, because now everybody needs experts in cybersecurity. The reason is that GDPR said before GDPR, if you were attacked, there is the fault of the attacker. Now, with GDPR, if you are attacked and this attack is violating the privacy of your customers, of the end users, then you are responsible because you didn't protect yourself. Similar thing is going to happen now in the artificial intelligence world. And this is why we are starting to talk now of trustworthy artificial intelligence. The European Commission is started to work a couple of years ago on a proposal for regulation that comes from the European Parliament and the European Council on harmonizing rules on artificial intelligence management. This pretty long name, I'm not even sure if I said it correctly now, is summarized in Artificial Intelligence Act. So what is going to cause this Artificial Intelligence Act? Something very similar to what GDPR did, that at some point, if you have artificial intelligence in the activities of your companies, of the products that you are selling to the user, either if you are working on artificial intelligence or you are just using it, your technology must abide to some specific standards related to privacy and ethics. And if it's not doing that, you can be sanctioned. You have to pay a fine for this kind of things. So there is going to be the need of people that are experts in designing this kind of machine learning mechanism and to assess the level of risk on the side of privacy and ethics that your artificial intelligence mechanism is doing. So we're having a shortage of skilled people in cybersecurity, and this started some years ago. Now, if this thing actually enters in force, it means we really need to start to hurry in preparing new talents for this new skill.
Thank you very much. We will conclude this session, and I've asked all the panelists with a very tough assignment. They have to actually get an elevator pitch. You have to give me your recommendation. How can Canada and Leave work together in terms of collaboration and try to be concrete in 10 seconds? So, Mr. Gambini, I'm putting you to the test. You're an executive, so tell us in 10 seconds what's your recommendation.
Just foster the excellence of both the parties. We have made an assessment of university in Canada. We understood the excellence, and we need
Just
to
one
foster
second.
collaboration.
Just 1 second. Mr. Sobrero, I forgot to ask you to take note on that. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Okay, thank you. I wanted the recommendation to be recorded. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I mean, I was saying that we have been opportunity to evaluate, to make several trips in Canada to understand and to have deep knowledge of the excellence that the university in Canada has. And we need to foster and to put strong efforts in collaboration with them. Both countries have excellences, and the only way to succeed is to cooperate.
Mr. Adzini?
You have to promote
If you had one
cybersecurity.
recommendation, key recommendation, how we should collaborate on something very concrete, Italy, Canada, what would you recommend today?
Yes, I would recommend that both countries together promote IT technology among young people so that in the future we have more experts and more attention by everybody to cybersecurity topics.
Thank you. Mrs. Porciani?
Yeah, my idea is that we have a great concrete area of collaboration when we are talking about brain circulation. If we collaborate together, I think we can go further on the topic of talents attraction together. Let's see, for example, the experience of MyTax, and we can learn from each other. There is another area I think that is very important, that is the skills intelligence approach, that together with the technology foresight and the exchange of skills data, so we understand together what are the skills for the future in the field of cybersecurity, will help everyone to understand better what we will need tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we need to collaborate in order to inspire. We need more leadership, less management, and at the end, we need to be able to attract and retain young talent.
I think building, I think I'm the moonshot kind of guy, so I'm going to say I'd like to see a joint agency, right? And I think there's a lot of themes that have been discussed in this room today, and I think those are the underlying themes for training and class collaboration, right? So we can have a mechanism for the exchange of people and ideas, right?
Correct.
Especially because it's an incubator, like for EU, the Italy side could take the EU perspective and bring that to Canada, which I think is missing in Canadian business. They don't understand what those things are to basically do business in Italy and vice versa, but then at the same time using it as a training grounds for cybersecurity.
And it's very possible because IoT Canada can create a community tomorrow morning and start to exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think the two agencies, Cybersecurity Canada, the ACN in Italy, should join other NATO agencies to share the workload of developing free and, of course, open access services for skills assessment. It's still very cumbersome to go around catalogs of, continuing education for most companies and most CIOs and most CISOs. So therefore, I think it's necessary that our agencies do provide a public service of that sort. Now, I pointed out one technology. There's many more technologies that come together and provide a continuous service for that kind of assessment. And I believe skill gaps cannot be detected just by a CIO managing 100 or 200 employees. There has to be some automated mechanisms.
I have to ask you to be shorter because the food is waiting.
Well, I'll build on this. I think benchmarking between Italy and Canada on both cybersecurity solutions and AI solutions would be a great way to improve.
Yeah, and AIoT Canada is going under currently developing a national strategy to bring the entire ecosystem. We're going to be doing benchmarking, so might as well join those efforts.
Okay, it seems I'm the barrier between us and the food.
Sorry.
I'll be very short. Joint fundings, Italian, Canadian, Canadian, European, for opening competitive calls for research and innovation actions on these activities, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, everybody. I think it's been a great session. I wanted to have the audience to participate, but I had the toughest panel to do. Lots of people to manage, but you did a great job, and thank you very much for the keynote presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci, Michel.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.